In September of 2016, the first playable version of Hello Neighbor came out to the public, also known as pre-alpha. It had the basics of what could be in the final game, but it was very different and the gameplay was great for what it was. Hello Neighbor is a game about sneaking into your neighbor's house and uncovering the secrets hidden within. Though in the later versions, the game got a bit more family friendly and the physics got worse, we can still appreciate the process behind how this game was made. Going back to pre-alpha though, to normally beat the game, you had to run to the neighbor's house and get caught, then find a way to distract the neighbor to grab the items you need so you can be able to open the door leading to the basement that isn't really there in this version. For a speedrun, there doesn't really seem to be that much you could change at first glance. Obviously, you can memorize the code instead of using the ultraviolet lamp to find it, but that's pretty much it, right? It was the first ever version of the game, and it didn't really seem like many things could be exploited unlike later versions, and for a really short speedrun like this, there doesn't really seem to be that much to get excited about, but on the contrary, today I will be showing you how Hello Neighbor pre-alpha speedrunning went from basic movements to a very confusing route with tricks that seem absurd from an outsider's perspective. Before we talk about the speedruns, let's go back to the start of pre-alpha's existence on YouTube. The first video I could find of Hello Neighbor was by Dashy Games, a YouTuber with over 6 million subscribers. Although his videos on pre-alpha are hilarious, he never actually beat it, but I do recommend his videos if you want an idea of how this game worked. The first person I found that actually beat the game was 8-Bit Ryan. Obviously it wasn't fast considering it wasn't a speedrun, but I just wanted to mention him because I feel like this is an important part of pre-alpha's existence. Now as for the first ever strategy, it was created by someone named MAF Ham. Basically his strategy was to get out of the house and grab a trash can, place it behind your bed in your house, sleep until the giant neighbor nightmare starts. Yes, that is a feature in this game. Then use the trash can to jump out of your house through the ceiling so you can run to the neighbor's house to get a lockpick in the garage and the hammer to open the door. Nowadays, this strategy is really slow, but it still has some pretty cool tricks. Besides that, in the same video, he actually introduced a glitch that would be important in the future. A trick that he in his video calls the leaning glitch. It lets you look through walls and grab items through them, but there is another perk to it we'll get into later. His first ever speedrun on pre-alpha was actually the first ever speedrun on pre-alpha, and it was also his last. It was 32 seconds long. Even for this strategy, it wasn't that fast of a run, but the tricks used are pretty cool and it was the first world record in pre-alpha. A thing to note that he changed in this run compared to his strategy though, is that instead of using the trash can to get out of the house, he just goes to the back of the bed to jump on the door in the bedroom, which saves time from going outside and grabbing one. The second world record in pre-alpha was actually 2 years after the first one, by someone named Awesome Andy. Every old run starts with the first movement. The reason why I say this is because it will be changed in the future. His run was pretty good for its time. He used the route that would be used in many other runs and was the strat for 3 years. He starts off by running to the neighbor's house to get caught, then runs out to grab the radio and the pile of items in front of the house of our character, then goes to the back of the neighbor's house, turns on the radio so the neighbor would be distracted and go turn it off. Then Andy grabs the crowbar in the cabinet and the pile of objects, and then uses the leaning glitch that we established before to grab the chair blocking the doorway to the side of the house, to then go into the living room, grab the key next to the TV, and open the basement door. The run is 29 seconds. It is an improvement from the last world record. The strat used is way faster, but it isn't perfect, so we can disregard the message that Awesome Andy put in the description saying human perfected run. Highly unlikely anyone will ever beat this, and 28 seconds is most likely impossible. But even after saying that it's not perfect, it did actually surprisingly take another 2 years for the run to be beaten. On January 7th, 2020, someone called Senpai JMB tackled the speedrun and beat the former world record, although his strat had flaws. He grabbed the TV instead of the radio, unlike Andy's run, which was a bit of a time loss considering the television is further away than the radio, but he did save that time by grabbing the chair through the door without even having to lean to grab it, which was a great time saver that he found for such a short run. Senpai's run was only 0.06 seconds faster though. It isn't that special, but he did state that there was room for improvement. And indeed there was, because 10 days later, the record was beaten with the first ever sub 29 by someone called Big Boy. Although the strategy was not really changed, his movement was a bit quicker, which gave him a 28.97. Except this run didn't last long, because one day later, Awesome Andy came back with revenge and got the first ever sub 27 with a 26.83. Nothing particular to point out though, just faster movement. But it's insane how he saved over 6 seconds with this strategy that was alleged to have been humanly perfected 2 years prior. The next day though, Awesome Andy got a run with such fast movement that not only was it a sub 26, but it was so quick that it was world record for over a year.
Fucking heart right now, Jesus Christ, I'm hyped. Oh god, I wonder if sub 25 is possible, but the movements would be so precise is the only thing. I didn't ever think that I didn't even know if sub 28 was possible. I was pretty sure sub 29 was, but past 2 days have been insane.
It standed there for a while, undefeated. During this time, people tried beating the run, but Andy's movement was just too fast. It seemed hopeless to try and beat it. It had seemed he had finally gotten his human perfected run. But that's when I come in.
1, 2, 3.
March 1st, 2020. I uploaded a video titled Playing Hello Neighbor Pre-Alpha in 2020. Although this may seem like unimportant information, this single video made me want to start playing Hello Neighbor Pre-Alpha more. But not only that, after I uploaded it, I also actually discovered MAF Ham's world record from a few years back. When I saw it, I decided to try a strategy and beat his time. And when I did beat his speedrun, it started my enjoyment of speedrunning in general. And that's also when I learned about speedrun.com, where I found out that the speedrun had already been beaten by a lot of seconds, which motivated me to start trying this category. My first few attempts weren't really outstanding. I tried to improve, but my best at the start of 2020 was 28 seconds, and I was okay with it for a while, because I wasn't experienced enough to beat Andy's run yet, so I just took a break. But as we wait for me to come back, let's introduce another important player in this story. This man's name is Lee Man. May 30th, 2020, Lee Man made his first pre-alpha speedrun, or at least on his YouTube channel. The run was pretty much the same route, except way slower with a remarkable 43 seconds, for a first attempt at least. For his next run, he actually beat his personal best by 10 seconds, which is a huge improvement. And I think after that he was happy because he also took a break for a while, and there wasn't really any activity in pre-alpha speedrunning for a few months. I was just busy having fun in 2020 and Lee Man was just playing different games. But then, we come to November 23rd. 2020. I got a bit of motivation to try speedrunning pre-alpha again, and beat my personal best. After a few runs, I came back with a 26.37, and a month later, a 25.70. I would talk about these runs more in depth, but sadly, these 3rd place and 2nd place runs were rejected because I wasn't alerted that you were supposed to open the exit door at the end of the run, making these videos invalid. And it made me a bit mad and unmotivated, so I took another break for a few months. I did want to beat the world record, but I needed motivation and time. January 21st, 2021. Lee Man came back to speedrunning pre-alpha as well, but he only got a PB a month later with a 27.433, which is a big improvement by 6 seconds from his last run. Then he improved his run again by another second, making his PB 26 seconds and mine 28. So you might be wondering where I'm getting at here. I've mentioned both me and Lee Man, but all the runs I've mentioned are just PBs. Do we just keep trying the same route over and over again, hitting our heads on a brick wall until one of us breaks it? Well, another few months pass and we get to June of 2021. Remember the leaning glitch? Remember how I said there was another perk? Well, here's what it is. You could actually respawn in the same spot where you got caught by the neighbor in, if you keep leaning while he grabs you. Now, this seems like a game changer, right? It seems like it would help a lot. I mean, if you respawn, you could already be in the neighbor's house, removing the part where you have to run there. But it wasn't that simple, because you had to somehow run from the starting basement door to another corner so the neighbor won't chase chase you when you respawn, find an object to distract the neighbor and get the items, which is insanely difficult because the crowbar is outside and there isn't really that many items that you can use to distract him within his house. But I had an idea. For a split second after the black screen, there are items and assets loaded in from other loading presets of the neighbor's house. The one from the start of the game with the glowing orange door with some of the doors locked, and the third loaded house with the key spawning on the wall next to the entrance, the lamp spawning in, and the crowbar spawning in the garage. For this split second, you have just enough time to grab one item from these other presets and it would stay in your inventory. I know this sounds insane when I try to explain it because it is, but bear with me. So how did I use this to my advantage? In my run, I go to the neighbor's house like usual, but this time I get the neighbor to chase me to where the key spawns on the wall. I lean and wait for the black screen. Afterwards, I grab the key before it despawns, I go outside and ring the doorbell so the neighbor doesn't chase me while I'm trying to open the basement door, then I go to the back of the neighbor's house, grab the crowbar, get in through the side entrance, and go to the basement door. My run wasn't faster than world record, but this strategy seemed promising. By the way, off the topic of the strat, this was also during the time where they started making it so runs start when you open the door to your house instead of at first movement, so it would be easier for everyone. Anyways, let's get back on track. I did eventually beat Andy's run, which may seem like an amazing achievement, but someone got to it before me using my strategy, and that person is Lee Man. Using the leaning respawn strat, he got the first ever sub 25. This was the start of the modern era of this category. No more basic movement anymore. We're getting into the real complicated drug trip strategies. After 2 days, I found a trick where you can actually hit the doorbell inside the neighbor's house through the thin wall next to the entrance. It's kind of like how you can grab the chair through the door when entering the side of the house, without having to lean. With this trick, we could save time from turning around outside just to press it. With this, I could actually snag my first world record with a time of 24 seconds and 733 milliseconds. Exactly 100 milliseconds faster than Lee Man's. There's no way.
Dude, I think 23 is actually possible. I think sub 24 is actually possible.
I'm proud of you.
Dude, it's been a year. Fucking year.
But I wasn't finished. 1 day later, I got the first sub 24 with the same strat, which was exactly 1 second faster than Lee Man's run. Lee Man wasn't finished either though, because 1 day later he beat my run with a 23.467, which was crazy. The run had been improved by 10 seconds ever since the first world record. But that isn't even the end of it, because 1 day later, I found another strat that saved time. If you jump and crouch at a certain angle in the living room next to the basement door, the neighbor can't spot you, which is a really weird AI glitch. If you do this, the only way the neighbor can actually spot you is if you use an item on the door, which is why you have to have quick movement to unlock the code while unlocking the key lock, and then quickly remove the board and open the door before he catches you. In my next run, I did the leaning respawn strat again, but afterwards, instead of going outside, I jumped to the basement door and unlocked the key lock while putting in the code, and I did the leaning respawn glitch again while the neighbor caught me. After you unlock the key lock, the neighbor's house starts in its third preset phase, with the crowbar and the hammer in the garage and the key on the wall next to the entrance. I don't know why, but this is how it was programmed. So after the black screen ended, I ran to the garage from the exit door, grabbed the hammer, and ran back to the door to remove the board to then open it. With this run, I got the first ever sub 23, but the run wasn't perfect obviously. This was the first time I had actually succeeded with this strat. But how far could this game be broken down from here? 1 day later, Lee Man came back with revenge with a 22.420. This was a really big improvement from my run, but this strat was never used again in this category because 2 days later, on June 10th, I found a crazy strat that got us the first ever sub 20, skipping over sub 22 and sub 21 completely. How was this achieved exactly? As usual, after the black screen you grab the key, but this time, instead of running to the exit door or outside, you run to the wall located next to the boiler room. Remember the leaning glitch and how you could look through walls and doors? Well, it's back. Because if you jump and lean next to the boiler room where the camera is located, you can actually look through the wall and grab the hammer inside of it, which saves a lot of time from respawning and running to the garage. So then, after grabbing the hammer, you run back, jump on the stair railing to fall next to the basement door so the neighbor doesn't spot you, and then you unlock it. This was insane. At this point, we were pushing the limits of this game's glitches. One day later, Lee-Man beat the record again with 19 seconds and 489 milliseconds. And then, on the 15th, beat it another time with 19 seconds and 279 milliseconds. So after seeing how close we got to 19 seconds, I started practicing more, and 2 days later, I got the first sub 19. But that's not the end of it, because Lee-Man on the 5th of July beat the record by 0.86 milliseconds. But now we come to July 6th. I got a sub 18 that day. I had been planning this strat for a while, but I could never find a way to execute it. For the split second where all 3 house presets are loaded at the same time, the key on the wall and the crowbar in the garage are spawned. By doing something that triggers the neighbor during the second those 3 presets are on screen, like throwing an item or opening a TV, you could actually activate all 3 presets to not disappear after a second, meaning I could grab both the key and the crowbar to open the basement door. The only problem is, there was no item that could be used that wouldn't trigger the neighbor to instantly go to where you are and catch you. Pressing the doorbell made the neighbor go to the front door where you are, and throwing an object would just make the neighbor go to where you are. That is, until I found a way to prevent the neighbor from ever interfering. After the black screen, instead of grabbing the key on the wall, you have to grab the flower pot on the desk and throw it at or through the wall next to the living room. This will trigger the neighbor to stop doing his first action of going to the TV and check out what the sound was, keeping all the house presets stuck together. By doing this, the neighbor will either stay in the same room and go back to doing what he was supposed to, or walk to the wall you threw the pot in and get stuck in it, which is the optimal result. Then you quickly grab the key on the wall and go to the wall next to the garage because the doors of the garage are locked in the first preset, and then you jump and lean to the side to glitch into the garage to quickly grab the crowbar, like we did with the boiler room, and if he gets stuck in the wall, he is unable to chase you, letting you run from the garage to the basement door instead of having to jump and crouch to the door and opening it freely. My run that day was 17 seconds and 833 milliseconds, and that was an achievement. This route is highly unlikely to change anytime soon because of how optimal it is, and this was amazing. And November 7th, Lee-Man beat the world record again by 400 milliseconds. But there is only one more run to talk about now. So who reigns to this day as the man with the fastest pre-alpha speedrun? Well, let's check the run out and I'll tell you afterwards. This run has the quickest movement with the most optimal strats in place, so who's responsible for it? A run that almost slices the original world record of 33 seconds and a half with a sub 17. Well, it was none other than Lee-Man. He went really far from his beginnings, from over 40 seconds to world record speedrun at the time of making this video. It truly is an outstanding achievement for him, and for this category in general. He even barely made the sub 17, which is what makes it so insane. And that's where it stands to this day. There has been barely any activity in any % pre-alpha lately, but you never know, maybe in a few days, weeks, or months, something new could happen. But for now, our story ends with the sub 17, which I think is very remarkable. Pre-alpha is a short but interesting run with a lot of glitches and bugs. It got really insane by the end, but it is still one of the biggest steps in the Hello Neighbor speedrunning community in my eyes. And surely at some point it will be improved. But for now, let's just be happy with what we have. Thanks for watching. Peace. Bye.